My story began with falling in love of how things work, why things work like that, and Linux being completely open source gave you the opportunity to understand that. Very often those companies have this marketing type of wording that you potentially have a possibility to access the network. When you have a 0 day, the attacker not has the possibility, but that's the main reason they will gain access and your network is not secure. Generally, security is a hostile environment. It's a constant battle between people who want to gain access to your data, to your company and so on, and people who try to secure it. For sure, I think that everybody have good intentions and they want to make a secure solution and they want to make an easy enrollment, onboarding and connecting and so on, but things go wrong. The first place we saw that actually people use it was when we posted our initial licensing model and people started to buy it. When the attacker will come, you need to understand and have the easiest possible way to understand the vector of the attack. And that's my approach to Defguard, is to secure as much, let's say, entry points to your network, to then, if the attack arises, you have the easiest and most, let's say, complete view of what happened. The only advice I can give you is that you just need to grind, work, hustle, whatever, and listen, adopt, iterate. There's one simple rule. If one customer wants this feature, let's put it on the backlog. If 2 customers want that feature, let's put it on the backlog and talk to them why. And if 3 customers want that feature, then you need to do the feature.
Hard2beat.
Hi, welcome to Hard2beat Podcast, the podcast where we interview founders and venture capitalists, and we talk about technology and venture capital investing. Today, I have here with me Robert Olejnik.
Hi there.
Founder of Defguard, an open source VPN solution with multi-factor authentication for WireGuard protocol. Hi, Robert.
Hi, great to be here.
Nice to have you. So as Hard2beat, we invested in Defguard in 2025, but it's actually an interesting story how we met, because that introduction came from PFR Ventures, so one of the public investors. Like, why did they contact you?
So generally, I've been doing projects, investments for around 15 years, and PFR Ventures contacted me because they wanted me to start a new VC fund. And I've been in that process once already, but decided to build Defguard, and I never say no to a let's say, great business meeting. So I met them and said, sorry guys, I do believe that Defguard is that next thing, and I want to build it, and I will build it, and I'm building it. So if you have any recommendations of a VC fund that may actually help us, the main criteria for me was not money. The main criteria for me was a fund that was created with actual entrepreneurs, actual people who did companies, who know the sweat and tears of building a product. And on that call, Hard2beat came up. And they said, like, we think that Hard2beat may be a good match for you. Yeah. So here I am. Generally, Hard2beat was not only the main purpose because of the recommendation, but the fact that when I saw Hard2beat and I saw that you are one of the founders of Hard2beat, and I knew Piwik because I'm generally deeply into open source. We can go into that later. And I saw that the Piwik founder is in Hard2beat. We didn't have any pitch decks. We generally, what we did was just develop Defguard back then. And I said, I will just make a pitch deck for 20 minutes and I will just drop it in, hoping that you will say, hi, okay, we are interested.
That's exactly what happened, because like I saw a lot of similarities with my early days of Piwik in Defguard, and how you create product with open source approach, etc.
And being like P-Week was the greatest project for me that was very similar in terms of business approach. So it was open source and it was an enterprise project and it was going against the biggest, let's say, companies in the world, like Google Analytics.
Yeah, David versus Goliath type. And I think you are exactly in the same spot, and we'll get to that. But before we go into, I want to go a little bit back, like about your story. Okay. How did your journey with the technology start? I know that you were like one of the contributors to Red Hat and founded some user groups of Linux and Unix in Szczecin. So how all this history started?
So I don't know if Red Hat included my patches, but I for sure send them a lot. So when computers, let's say, became for me a thing, because I was in high school back then, I fell in love with Linux. Like from early days, the difference between Linux and everything else back then was that Linux gave you the possibility to generally do whatever you like, and I loved it. Like I will not diss Microsoft and Windows and so on, but it's a user-based approach. So the user can do this and that, and Linux for me was everything because I could do much more. And I fell in love with Linux. I didn't have internet back then because it was very expensive and I could not afford it. So I like from my very small city, I drove to one of the stores and buy CDs and magazines, and I learned Linux from that. And then I discovered the let's say hacking scene, the zines, the Frag and 260 and others, and yeah, my story began with falling in love of how things work, why things work like that, and Linux being completely open source gave you the opportunity to understand that. So I started coding very early, and then I was living in my small town and nobody understood and knew Linux. Everybody was just gaming on Amiga or early DOS or Windows. So when I came to Szczecin, where Defguard right now is based, and I came to the university, I thought that, well, now everybody will be using Linux because it's so cool that like I was waiting to meet anyone who is using Linux, and unfortunately no one on my technology school used Linux. So I said, if I don't start Meetup or someone, I will not know any of those people. So then Szczecin Linux and Unix community group came to be with few of the friends that I met. So
I had exactly the same issue, because I think my story is also very similar with like figuring out how things work and learning coding and Unix systems. I was a fan of BSD systems, so I started with NetBSD, then FreeBSD, etc. And ultimately I ended up with a group, Linux group, like Mikołów Linux group, because I lived in Katowice, but Mikołów was closer, and we had the IRC channel, and that's how we met, and then we took it to...
Everybody back then was on IRC.
Have you fought in any IRC wars with taking over channels?
And generally I also started very early to work because that's my story. Like I just needed to work to generally go to school and so on. So I was fortunate enough that I was building one of the here in Szczecin some I was working for some ISPs like very early before everything was bought out by the major ones, and I had a lot of bandwidth, so I was able to float a lot of people.
So this is like how this passion for technology started going into working maybe for some companies.
Yes.
But how did you ended up entrepreneur? Because Defguard is not your first company. Like you have many projects.
Yes, I have many projects. Generally, my story is I wanted to be an engineer, and I was a low-level engineer. I coded in kernel. I knew I was a DevOps admin. Back then, it was just you know Linux, and there was everybody was admins who knew Linux. And when I started my first, let's say, corporate job, when I was working with telecoms and let's say, really huge companies all over the world. Back then, the CEO of that company told me, well, when you speak, nobody's running, and you don't look like, you look like properly, maybe you go into sales. And I was a yes guy to everything, because if you don't seize opportunities, then you were not able to learn. So I said, yeah, let's go to pre-sales. And then I went to sales, and then I went to project management, and so on and so on. And I learned the business side of projects very early on. And at some point, I really got, and that company I joined, I was around, I don't know, person number 10, 15, something like that. And I was beginning to do all the things. Like I hired a lot of people, I coached a lot of people, I did a lot of projects. I was the IT manager back then, and I helped very much to build that company. And I saw that I was not, let's say, appreciated. And I said, well, if I don't build my own company, I most probably will never be appreciated. And I know my value and so on. So I left, and I started my first company. And then I started to invest. And then if we are talking about Defguard, Defguard is a project that I wish somebody just did. Like from the early beginnings of my admin career, admins were like, no, they should be in the terminal. They should be, and yeah, there are times when you need to be in that. And most of the times you need to automate and so on. But nobody thought like there needs to be a nice UI, a nice UX. Some processes needs to be simple, because when everybody likes, let's say, properly designed and properly thought solutions. And in terms of security and admin stuff, everything was like, it doesn't matter. 2 or 5 people will just use it. They can do it. They can learn where something is, and the UI doesn't need to be nice and so on. And I was always feeling like left out.
So Robert, can you explain like what actually Defguard does?
So Defguard right now is a complete VPN platform that you can install on premise on your private cloud or your private servers, bare metal, whatever, however you have your network designed, and gives you really easy, solves a lot of problems with remote access. So the first problem that we solve is how to securely, remotely onboard and enroll users that they can have access to your network, and then manage the whole VPN network with multiple locations and so on. And then the most important thing that we solve right now, we deliver multi-factor on the WireGuard protocol. So like in one sentence, you with Defguard, you really you have a solution that you install in your own infrastructure. You completely control it, and we do not send any data and so on. And you enable users for easy and secure access to your corporate home lab, whatever network, with multi-factor authentication.
So this idea, let's say, slowly came together over the years. Yes. But what were the actual problems that Defguard is solving? So you told about like UX part, what are the actual issues that you came across on your professional journey that you saw that, okay, this triggered me to create something better, something that actually solves these issues?
So first of all, in terms of security solutions, they are black boxes. No one actually knows what's going on. There's a lot of promises. And the problem is that when you're building a relationship, like with a company, with a solution, generally the trust is the most important thing. And the problem with modern day security is that this trust is very often in today's security, the solutions are the trust with those solutions is switched for marketing.
So you are buying basically brand, not the quality of the solution.
Exactly. And when there are problems, nobody is stating, we have a problem, but no worries, we will take care of that. And most of the time, in terms of security solutions, those companies value more their visibility on the market and the I don't know, stock prices or whatever than the actual end user company, their data, their security. In terms of security, you are protecting companies, people. And when you are actually protecting your stock prices and not those people, then there's something wrong with that. And so that's why we wanted to build Defguard completely the other way around.
Mm-hmm. So I know that you don't want to name competitors, but I will do it for you. For example, Cisco and Fortinet, they had both like dozens of critical vulnerabilities. So
all the time.
And this is like just like last 2 years. And these are the vulnerabilities that allow full access to networks of corporates, governments, businesses, like, you know, how maybe you can explain a bit more about your product and how you position against these giants on the market that have been like for years with their solutions.
The main difference is the approach, because people build products and people make mistakes, and that's okay. That's like, we're just people, we're not machines. But when you have those problems, and generally you the approach is not to think that you need to change something because those problems are still recurring, then fundamentally something is wrong. And then the other thing is that you are, let's say, you say that no, that we actually do not have a problem. And very often those companies have this marketing type of wording that you potentially have a possibility to access the network. When you have a 0 day, you have the attacker has the possibility, but that's the main reason they will gain access, and your network is not secure. So the approach is to downgrade everything. Everything's not a problem, and then we just do a fix, and then let's go on with our lives, and that's it. And with Defguard, we said no. Defguard will be completely open, and the openness that we try to is not only the source code. We are open source and open code because some parts are, let's say, under our licenses, but the code is open, the processes are open. You can see fully all the roadmap or the discussions that we have with our developers. Testing is open. You can see how we do tests. And then the most critical part in terms of security solutions, you need to test them against vulnerabilities, because we make mistakes and developers make mistakes. From what I know, maybe someone can correct me, but we are the only VPN solution right now that publishes completely openly their pen testing reports, which is done by our security team, which is one of the best, if not the best, security company in Poland, ISEC, shout out to them. Mm-hmm. So, and disclaimer, they are an investor, and they are investor not because of the fact that they like whatever solution, software solutions, but in the early days when we started Defguard, it was completely open source. There was no, let's say, paying components. There was no figuring out how to do a commercial company around them. And ISEC back then did the first initial security audit, and then they liked the solution, they liked the approach. And I remember when I got an SMS from Janusz, the CEO, with props from the security guys, which said, this is the only solution that actually makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, like the era where security through obscurity works is like long gone. And
no, it's not. We hope that it will be gone.
That's our bet. But I think what I wanted to get is exactly that. Like, everybody who is a professional in this industry is aware about the issues with like very large enterprise solution that are closed box, these black boxes, let's say, but still governments, corporations, they buy Cisco, they buy the Fortinet, and they are not, I mean, sometimes they are interested, but still majority of them buy Cisco because it's known, it's a brand.
Nobody got fired for buying Cisco. That's like, this is my personal view and my personal, let's say, understanding of the industry is that they are not buying a solution, they are buying insurance. So if you are a really big company with billions of dollars or euros and you are on the market for quite some time, then most of the people just want, like, security and generally being an admin, DevOps, whomever, is about not being visible. You actually work when nobody thinks about you. Like, a lot of people do not understand that your admin is the greatest admin when you don't see him, you don't call him, there's no problems and so on. If everything just works, so you buy peace of mind. And I think that there's wrong thought that the peace of mind will be because that company, even if doesn't have a great architecture, doesn't think actually about security, but they will patch, they will take care of this and that, and I will just don't have a headache. It's been going on for several years, but there are solutions in various other areas when like cool kids use OpenSense, pfSense, which is open based on FreeBSD and so on, and they try to do a corporate enterprise solution with open source, but and to be honest, it's a tough and heavy road. And we also thought with Defguard that will be much easier. It will be much quicker. I've been in this business for 25 years and with, let's say, passion for low level for 30 years. And I thought we'll do Defguard in 1 year and then it will be great. And no, so nobody is doing this because it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money because you need to hire the greatest engineers and teams and so on.
But one thing is to have a great product, and I understand the engineering part, but like how to get in the minds of the decision makers in large organizations that they need to like think more about security and what they put on their network and what liability they create by having these devices that have constant vulnerabilities. Like I know that some big organizations approaches Defguard, so they are start thinking about it, but how do they differ, those organizations that contact you and that use Defguard or potentially will use Defguard, from organizations that just buy Cisco and forget about it?
Right now, they are approaching us. There are few reasons why they are approaching us. The first is we actually are the only solution on the market right now that does actual multi-factor authentication on the protocol, let's say protocol level. It's not in the protocol for WireGuard. So the VPN protocol. So what we mean by on the protocol level, we mean that maybe the protocol level is misleading on connection level. Before any actual VPN connection will start, we do actually you can do with Defguard actual multi-factor authentication, and there is no other solution on the market that does that. Every solution, either if it's cloud-based, and there are several ones like Tailscale, NetBeard, and all others, or if there are, let's say, on-premise when you can buy hardware and so on, there is no solution on WireGuard that does multi-factor before the connection actually starts. So this is one thing that we did, this, let's say, innovation. The other thing is that they approach us because they see value in the openness. They see value in the transparency. And when a company actually cares about security, you have to ask yourself, what does it mean that I care about security? And from my my point of view, when you say you care about security, you actually care about the data and the things that you have in your network. So devices, data, software, and so on. So security is to secure access to them. So if you care about security, then you try to find a solution that shows that they also care about security, and we do care about security. That's the main reason, and that's why Defguard has from everything from scratch. It was like every detail was thought through. So that's why we have Rust as the underlying and the main language that we code in, that we have this architecture, and architecture are components and how they communicate, how they interact with each other, how the communication is secured, and so on and so on. And then you build upon that. So the process, the pen testing, the backlogs, the roadmap, the communication with us, and so on. And we try as much as we can to underline the main reason for Defguard is security, and the main reason why we did multi-factor on WireGuard, because multi-factor is the best method of securing, right now that we know, of securing any type of a solution, because an attacker can gain access to, let's say, one of the factors that you have, like the password or the key for WireGuard or something else. But if you stack those methods and you have multi-layered connections, then you significantly make them harder to access your networks.
It's like I think I have this analogy of Swiss cheese model of security. Like in aviation, you have the several layers, and there are so rare accidents because each layer protects you. So even if you make one mistake, two mistakes, then there's another layer that prevents that from happening. Of course, there may be sometimes an accident where it goes through all the holes, but it's very, very unlikely. So I think it's similar with Defguard, that you have so many layers to make it secure.
And I haven't thought of that because I was just only thinking about the multi-factor aspect, but actually all the decisions that we make, from the language to the architecture to the communication to the parts where our things placed in the network and how the internal network communication should look like, and then our communication between the components that are outside publicly available, because in VPN you have publicly available components like the desktop mobile client or our components that expose some functionalities. Those are all the layers of security that we did, and you can actually see them. You can read the documentation, the code, the tests, our architecture decision records, because we also publicly record all the decisions that we make. And you can go through all of this and say, yeah, guys, and we had that. That's a great idea. That's a great approach. But here's the mistake you made. We're fine with that. We are really fine with that we are making mistakes. Just go, point it out, we'll fix it.
Yeah, because there's a whole community that is looking at it, as opposed in a closed solutions where it's just the engineering team.
We promise that we do testing.
We promise, and we know like how the promises were delivered by many corporations.
Like all the airports were down for a week.
That's another one. But I wanted to discuss the idea of cloud VPN, because we have on one hand this like old competitors that have physical devices and some software on top, of course. And then you have a new wave of VPNs like Tailscale, which is cloud only. And can you tell me like why someone wants the VPN in the cloud? For my understanding, it's like you want VPN to get into your internal connection. So that's probably the last thing that you want to have in the cloud.
Ease of use. That's it. I think this is my guess that people generally who use cloud solutions, they just take them because it's the fastest, the quickest way to, let's say, solve your problem. But in terms of security, it's not that easy. And that's also one of the things that we try to address. So Defguard is highly complicated. Defguard has around 10 products in total, because if you take our core server and then our public facing components that do some stuff with the clients, and then our gateway service, and then each desktop client is their own solution, because there are things different on Mac, on Windows, on Linux, and then mobile clients, and then deployment strategies, because we've got cloud-based, Docker-based, package-based, Kubernetes, Amazon, and so on. So we've got like 10 plus products that we need to take care of. So it's really, really complex and really time consuming to test it, to get everything working. And we still try to do it as easy and as quick and as less painful to deploy and use Defguard. But it's much easier just to log in with Google or Facebook or whatever, and then download an app, click connect, and that's it. So
and forget about it.
And forget about it.
But I still like the UX of Defguard, like how easy it is for end user to onboard and generate like keys and install the client, etc. But I wanted to go back to one aspect. I think the cloud, and because all these players are US-based companies, this becomes a geopolitical aspect, and there is like whole like digital sovereignty and like how Chinese companies, European companies, and companies basically from around the world, how they rely on the technology that is in the US, that is controlled by NSA, and can it be trusted?
We don't know if it's controlled by NSA.
We don't know. But I just asked question.
Yeah.
But potentially this is a huge liability, and like if you are government or military, you don't want things to be hosted in the cloud controlled by other country. At least that's what I would do.
And Jenny, I think that still it doesn't matter if someone is listening there or see the traffic and so on. Still, if they're working properly and they do what they promise, they still hold some critical data about you, even in terms of VPN, even if the traffic is actually secured and we don't have a reason to say it's not secured, and so they don't see the data that is flying around. Still, they have the metadata. They know from where you connected, when did you connect it, to which IPs, so locations and so on. And they have general metadata. So from which locations, how much data generally are you sending, and so on and so on. So still, like 10 years ago, there was this heavy notion of evangelists that they tried to say that if you do not pay for the product, meaning, for example, social media, you are the product. It's not the case with potential, let's say, VPN platforms, but still there is a possibility to profile you, to build some profiling around your behavior, your company behavior, your user behavior, and so on and so on. So the only other solution is just to control your software.
Yeah, install Defguard on your own infrastructure. And I know not all Defguard is open source, but it's open code. Can you explain the difference here?
So Defguard in the early days was completely open source, and we wanted to be open source for as much as we can. At some point, it was not getting the traction that it's needed, or we hoped it will get. And at some point, we said to ourselves, if we will not actually build the whole company around Defguard, around the product, and not only build the functionalities, the vision that we had, and do it as a side project, but if we don't focus completely 100% on Defguard, there will be no Defguard. That's it.
But you need money to actually sustain that.
Exactly. In terms of security especially, because it's not good to have solution that is the core of your networking and access to all your systems in the company and so on. So we made a decision that we will change the license, that some functionalities will be under our license and paying features, to start to figure out how to actually sustain main development of Defguard. So that's why we kept the code open for everybody to see. But so for some functionalities, the licensing states that you need to buy a license, support us, support the development, because you need that.
But you can still review the code and see the quality of the solution,
exactly.
and it's like fully auditable, and unlike the solutions from other vendors.
Exactly, and the code is one part, and as I told you, there are other things which I already mentioned. But one important thing is the inspectability and visibility of how the solution actually works when it works, not only the code. So you deploy Defguard on your own infrastructure, you deploy it on the preferred operating system. You can deploy it on Linux, you can deploy it on FreeBSD, OpenBSD, pfSense, OpenSense, and so on. And then you have the control of this system on your own. And like one, let's say, system architect from one telecom, European telecom, told me that it is critical for them to see what the solution is actually doing. Not because they want to, let's say, inspect it, but if it's not working, most of the time they are really good engineers and they can figure out themselves what is not working, but they need to have access, visibility, and to see the logs, see how the processes are working, see like the API and so on, and they can figure out on their own and not wait 2 weeks for a fix from support team that doesn't generally tell you what's going on. They most of the time can figure out on their own, but they need to have access to that, and Defguard enables you to do it.
Yeah, and unlike some of the solutions on the market, I listened to the podcast that you sent me a link where they talked about the hack with the solutions where you have on the devices you have this QR code that you can just join it for the cloud controller.
The management controllers.
The management controller. And then like take over the device. So it's super easy.
Exactly.
It's easy of use, but from the security standpoint, it's a disaster, and it's hard to even like inspect like what really happened if somebody takes over the management of the device.
So generally, all the things are generally based on those, let's say, assumptions and promises, how it works, how it's secured, and so on. And most of the time, they are meant to work properly. They are meant to work securely, and they are meant to generally do what you buy them to do. But the problem is that when they don't, and why they don't? Because generally security is a hostile environment. It's a constant battle between people who want to gain access to your data, to your company, and so on, and people who try to secure it. And I think that everybody have good intentions, and they want to make a secure solution, and they want to make an easy enrollment, onboarding, and connecting, and so on. But things go wrong. Not because of you, like exactly with us, with Defguard. Things go wrong. And that's why we, let's say, take the biggest chance for everybody, for us, for you as a customer, to see that maybe something went wrong with our best intentions and approach and so on. But for that to happen, you need to have it open. You need to for the actual engineer that deploys, that configures it, to understand that, well, I think that here something went wrong, and not to close everything and state that everything's right and everything's fine, and you generally cannot see what's going on, because it may go wrong, it may go sideways, and it does. And there's the problem. So this generally is the problem with the approach, that maybe everybody have great intentions, but the attacker doesn't.
So I think what strikes me is that the solutions get even more complex and complex, and now with AI, everybody wants to add AI. So I wonder, like, once to all the security products, there will be AI added for good reasons to find out, for example, what happens. If this will not create whole wave of new like problems because they wanted to do something good, but it didn't work out.
And that's why I will not maybe address what other companies companies try to do and how, and because I will assume that everybody has good intentions, but the problem is there are a lot of people and companies who had good intentions, but it went sideways. So our approach is that we have good intentions, that's one, but you can influence those intentions. You can actually see how we are going to implement this feature and that feature. You can talk to us how you would like to have this feature, and then you can point out like this is a great thing that you are working on. But even before we roll out to the production, we roll out the feature, and you can talk about this, you can test it. So I think that this is the only approach that you can do with security if you want to take care of security.
So I want to go back to the Defguard from the business perspective now. So I think you are in a privileged situations where your first customers just came to you, and like, how did it happen? Like, I think many founders would love to be in that situation where they are still looking for this product market fit, and you somehow like hacked it around.
I think not hacked around, but I like building products for let's say 15 years and doing projects for 20 plus years, you learn that you need to listen. And generally, Defguard was my vision, my idea, and the initial release that we didn't get that much traction that I wanted, and I was really down for several months. I thought that, why doesn't anybody understand it? Why doesn't anybody see the value in this and that? What I did, I said, my co-founder said, you need to start to talk to people. Why? And that's it. So there were several months of just talking. And then there was this idea, okay, so we need to change this and that and so on. So we just went to the market. We went to the companies, the people who were willing to talk to us. And then we said, okay, so here's another round. What do you think about it? And also, this round will also include the fact that we need to make money on this because we want to build it. So there will be some licensing fee.
I want to go into one more thread. Yeah. So when you had this like first users giving feedback, that was because it was open source, and I think you posted it on Reddit or there were some other places. Can you talk about like how these first users learned that there is something like Defguard, and where did you look for them?
We are not marketing gurus, and we don't understand marketing. We are just engineers. But what we did after we posted the initial Defguard release, we said, okay, but still someone will not, we need to point people, here is Defguard, like we value your opinion. And we did it. And the initial releases were with Reddit. So Reddit was the initial, let's say, group of people that came to use Defguard, see, comment on issues and so on.
Did it get like many users? Like, was it like dozens or maybe couple?
And we don't know that. That's the part that I'm missing. The part that I'm missing is that we did it, we released it. There were some users for sure, and we did not understand how many. We did not track because we are a security solution and we didn't want to have any tracking and so on. And if something works, rarely someone goes to you and I'm using, this is great, thank you. Like
they only complain.
So we did get some complaints. So we saw that someone is using, but then we reached out to other companies and so on and tried to figure out how to do it even more usable. And the first place we saw that actually people use it was when we posted our initial licensing model, and people started to buy it. And I was blown.
That's amazing. Like you don't do much marketing. You create a solution. Like I think it's a dream of every engineer, not to have to market, but you did it differently. You talked with them a lot. You gave a lot of feedback, and that was results probably of your work with these people that they actually then went and bought the license because you built what the market needs and not what you thought that the market need.
I think we did both. We thought what the market needs, and we then listened and delivered what the market needs, and we still try to do it. Like the most important thing, and the thing that I do the most, is try to talk to as much companies, users, and so on. And the only question I ask where do we suck, how
Yeah.
to make it better, what's the problem. Just write me an email, do me a GitHub issue and explain it to me, because Defguard was the first product that I realized that your vision and your intention is one thing, but how actually people use it, and not even what they need, but how they are using it, then the functionalities or the requirements of the product, how it should look like, how it works, sometimes are not even that they like it to be differently, or they want it like this, like they need it because of this or that, or they are using this or that, and then for that reason, very sane and obvious reason, when you hear it, it should work like this, but you will not know it if you don't ask.
Yeah, exactly. So I know that even like when we were closing the round in April, May, you had on roadmap mesh networking, which was like something that other competitors have, and that was like one of the things that were maybe not at the top, but quite high in the roadmap. But it turns out after this few months that it's not something that the customers actually want from you, which we talked about yesterday.
Yeah, so we tried, like the roadmap that is on constantly is the roadmap that just people reach out and explain what they need and why they need it, and we just deliver it.
And how do you decide how do you prioritize? You have finite resources.
Yes.
As a startup, you have very finite resources. So you have to somehow decide like what's actually the next thing that we want to build.
There's one simple rule. If one customer wants this feature, let's put it on the backlog. If two customers want that feature, let's put it on the backlog and talk to them why. And if three customers want that feature, then you need to do the feature.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe now let's talk about future. So Defguard is like, open source VPN for WireGuard with multi-factor authentication. What we can expect in coming months, and what's like vision for the next couple of years, like in which direction do you plan to develop?
So Defguard will for sure go in the first stage is to help as much companies to be as easy and as quick as we can for them to adopt Defguard. And adopting Defguard, it's not only about the how easy you install the server and so on, but also how then you can widespread the configurations and help the end users, because most of the users are not technical users, and we tried to do the simple as we can how to onboard users, enroll them, but a lot of companies, especially now when we have companies that have hundreds of users, but now they are approaching, most of the companies that approach us, they have thousands of users, and they say it's really hard to enroll like thousands of users. So you need to help us with that.
The ease of adoption in the organization.
That's the first. So from what we hear, let's say the functionalities right now, are good enough as they are, but we need to have the easier way to roll out and to install and pre-configure and so on and so on. So that's the first step that we want to make. The second step that we want to make is to hear out how then if it's widespread, because we already know the adoption of hundreds of users. We have already a lot of companies that have hundreds of users and so on. So we do, I think, already understand how Defguard works in that environment. Then we want to understand how it works on a larger scale. And for sure, from that, we will see some functionalities that will arise. And I will not tell you what they will be because I don't know. So hopefully with those customers we will know. But my vision is that, and the vision that we initially started with Defguard, is that we want it to be a fundamental security platform. So right now we are focusing on VPN because we selected it to do it as the best way we can to solve all the problems that we see, and the problems are like lack of multi-factor and the things think that the clients do not automatically configure themselves, and there's no easy onboarding and enrollment and so on, and all of that. And we just deliver the solution that we thought that gives value to the end users. But security is much more complex, and the VPN is just one channel of securing. And our vision is to have Defguard secure as much as we can. So we want to go and give functionalities to secure the Wi-Fi, the cable Ethernet networks, and other functionalities. And people may say, but why? If something is for everything, then maybe it's not a good solution. But from my point of view, and right now, when security solutions are fragmented, so this solution is just from the VPN perspective, and this one is from single sign-on, and this one is from accessing the Wi-Fi network, securing the Wi-Fi network like login password and so on. The attacker doesn't care that you have this or that and this. The attacker only cares about how to get into your network and how to gain access and so on. And when someone is persistent, then most surely they will. It's a matter of time, resources, and so on. So the question is, you cannot make an ideal solution that will secure everything. But what you can do is spread out this inspectability and visibility and understanding of what's happened. And if you spread it out to all the channels in a solution that will generally know, so that the attacker, when the attacker will come, you need to understand and have the easiest possible way to understand the vector of the attack. And that's my approach to Defguard, is to secure as much, let's say, entry points to your network, to then, if the attack arises, you have the easiest and most, let's say, complete view of what happened. And if the solution is one coherent, then you have the chance to do that. Because right now, if you have multiple solutions, then you stack it with another solution that tries to, let's say, tie up which log of which entry point maybe makes sense together, and so on and so on. And it's really difficult to understand the vector of attack.
So you will become basically an alternative to Cisco, having like both VPN, firewall, solutions for connecting to Wi-Fi, etc.
That's our vision. That's our approach. Let's see how it goes.
So I also understand that you went from being technical person into sales and an entrepreneur. And I went very similar road, and I see people who are technical are very good at enterprise sales because they understand the product, they are seen as experts, and they are doing this not based on like dinners and like going to fancy parties, but actually selling the product
and understanding it.
I have like really a lot good experience with that, but some people say no, you need to have like proper salesperson that usually have no idea what they are selling. So have you seen in your career these people that had no idea, but they were very successful at selling like enterprise products?
Yeah, a lot of them. The question is, what is the end customer? If it's a customer that actually wants to go deep and understand and so on, you need the engineer, because they will ask the difficult questions and they require an honest, let's say, deep answer to that question. And let's say, and there are solutions that generally proper presentation gives all the answers and they can be sold in that way.
But these technical solutions, they are usually like either the company makes a strategic choice that will buy everything from corporation X and this will be our stack, or there are this bottom-up sales where I think Defguard falls, that first people see the open source project, they test it, experience, and they come to buy a license once they are ready. But they are technical people. They don't want this like marketing sales BS. They don't want fancy presentation.
Generally, Defguard DefGuard, what enables DefGuard is, and this is completely also, let's say, not typical in that market, is that you can being an open source and open code and so on solution, you can generally take it and deploy it and even use it. And our open source solution is complete. It's a complete single sign-on that you can incorporate to all your applications. It's a complete VPN solution with multi-factor based on that internal SSO. So you can connect remotely to your network with our mobile client with biometry and Face ID, whatever, and authorize your desktop app and then connect to your network with multiple layers of multi-factor. And it's complete. The open source solution is...
So how do you differentiate what to give out for free and what to charge for in the license? Because I know a lot of open source projects have problems with monetization on that.
And this is a struggle for me because generally in the early days I was really active on Reddit, and I talked with a lot of people, gave solutions and so on. And at some point we saw that everybody wants everything to be completely either free or open source. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that then, especially in security, you cannot sustain the development of that because you give it out for everything for free now. And the question is, how do we have the money for developers to patch it, to secure it, and so on? So we made a tough decision to change some parts of the licensing, require a license to buy something from us to have the money. And it's being also a complete open source freak and fun, and most of the stuff that we use is open source. It was really tough for me personally because you want to give back to the community.
Yeah. But in order to give back, you need to have money to even produce something to give back. So there is this balance that you need to...
Exactly. And our decision right now is that if you are using Defguard, the question is, where do you need the paying license? The paying license is in a way for functionalities, for example, integration with Google, integration with Okta, Jump Cloud, and so on. Because there are corporates or companies that say, we like Defguard in terms of VPN, but we will not use the Defguard internal SSO. We could use it. It's open source. It's free. We could deploy Defguard with internal SSO and have the complete multi-factor authentication system. But our corporate policies say that use Microsoft Azure. So if you are a company that's paying for that solution, you could pay for that integration in Defguard. So that's our, let's say, steering way of doing features, which features to do. And for sure, someone could say like, okay, but some of the functionalities that you also block could benefit the open source community. And for sure it could. And if we get, you can record this on camera, hopefully if we get big enough, then we will open source as much as we can. But for now, there's this constant inside and in the team discussion and struggle, what to give back to the community and what to require for the payment license for us, just generally to survive and to build Defguard.
So, I mean, that's certainly a big dilemma for every open source project. And we see at least that's my impression, that there are less open source projects today that are, let's say, tools and platforms. There's a lot on the development side, frameworks, libraries, etc. But there are less complete solutions that you can self-host and so on. Everything has moved to the cloud. You have to pay for it. Maybe you will have free tier.
And that's and I will quote. I like the self-hosted newsletter, and in one of the newsletters, if I remember, Ethan wrote down that he doesn't mind that self-hosted solutions start right now more and more to ask for money for whatever licensing and so on, because when he curates the self-hosted newsletter, and I really liked what he wrote, he underlined that he obsessively tracks all the open source projects, self-hosted projects, and he sees in the lifespan that if they are not funded, they will just die. That's it. So he underlined that he actually likes for the solutions to have this any type of a business model for them to survive. That's it. And that was really, really important for me to read, because I have this constant struggle also being an open source user and also hoping that everything is completely free and so on and so on. Maybe we could start Defguard development with donations and so on, but I wanted, but after the initial time that we released Defguard, I understood who are we competing against. And if we want to make a great solution, a great security solution, we just need a lot of money.
And I think on the donations part, like, it's, at least my impression, it's easier when you have a product that is for masses and you have the product that is more for enterprise and businesses. So there are potential smaller target group with much deeper pockets when it comes to spending on security, and you need to find a model to pay you for the solutions that you build. So one other thing I wanted to ask is, you switched from the services model. So you run for a lot of years a services business, and then you now run a product business. Like, can you tell for other founders, like, how difficult it is, and like what were the struggles to switch the mindset and to make this transition? So
one thing that is relevant, we always wanted to build products, always. That's why we've tried, invested, and built, I don't know, maybe 15 of them.
So you have to have 15 products to make one successful one.
I don't know. I know a lot of people that made one and they are successful, but that was, and we still, I don't know if we are successful with Defguard. That's a journey. But Defguard for sure has huge traction and huge interest in the market and so on. So that's a good sign, I think. But let's say switching from the service business to the product business it's like just walking on the moon. You just don't get it when you just land it. And when you land on the moon in terms of building a product, when you struggle enough and do enough work to have an actual product that someone wants generally, and then you step into that role and then you start to understand it. I read a lot of books like Founders at Work and every Bible that you need to have, like founders, entrepreneurs, YouTube channels, podcasts, and so on. But the only advice I can give you is that you just need to grind, work, hustle, whatever, and listen, adopt, iterate. And when it happened, it happens. And you cannot be prepared for that. You will not understand what's going on. Like initially with Defguard, like I thought nobody is using Defguard. I saw some GitHub issues, comments, and so on. So I had some idea that someone is using it. But by my first holy crap moment was that when we sold like initially in the first month 10 times more licenses, then I said to myself, like, if we sell this amount of licenses, I will be really happy. I will be like ecstatic that someone is using the product. And in the first month we did 10x, and then I got it, like, yeah, so
this was this aha moment that I need to put everything to focus on the product because the potential is much bigger than in the business. So I had this problem with building products before Piwik, that we built something and we actually built it without speaking to any customers. Okay. And it was always failure. And then we tried to find the customers for that. You did it properly. I mean, you also built it, but then you started talking to customers and and iterated on that, which is great. So okay, so that's the advice for the founders from services businesses. What about what advice would you give yourself at a young age? I don't know, 15, 20-year-olds, based on what you know today.
I think the most important thing is generally to have a vision and not to give up on it. And I know that this is like you hear about that a lot in various interviews, but like I'm 44 right now, and I thought that I will never build a product. Like after 10 or 15 products that you've built, invested, and most of them, because some of them we had with other business partners and so on, but a lot of them we invested our own time and money and so on. I was ready to give up and say, like, I don't know how to do it. I do not understand this. And Defguard was this thing that I just said, this is what I know. This is what I was always wanted to have. And why is nobody building it? And Defguard being completely open, completely a software solution in terms of cloud solutions or hardware solutions, everybody told me when we started to build Defguard, this is insane and nobody will use it and nobody will buy it. And I said, well, at least I will have one customer that wants it. That's us, because we want to use such a solution.
But hopefully you had more, and it turned out that actually people want to use it, and you prove everyone was wrong about that.
And honestly,
like how long it took till you realized that there are other people that want to use it?
At least a year.
At least a year. So that's like you have to have this conviction. Are there any stories from the startups or products that you built before Defguard that you had a failure, but you learned a lot on them? Like, can you maybe just tell us one or two that made the biggest impact on you?
So the most important thing because we were a service business as well. So being a service business, we also built products for others. Mm-hmm. And our role was to build the best product that the customer wants. Mm-hmm. But the problem with most of those people were that they made the same mistake as a lot of founders, that you think you know what product to build and not talk to the market itself, to the customers, your own customers, the potential ones. And the biggest mistake I see is that you actually need to build the solution, because how will you show it to someone else if it's not there? Where there are ways to like prototype or have a presentation and so on. So from what I saw, not from our perspective with our failures, but also a lot of founders that we help build solutions, is that you build it in your head, not in the actual reality. Mm-hmm. So you need to build it in a reality. And how to do it, I don't know. I don't know the product. I don't know the idea. So you need to figure that out. But when you do, then you actually understand it. It doesn't work that in a way that you can figure out the product yourself. Like, you don't. Like, there are billions of users, and you cannot understand and know what every user wants. That's it.
I was always amazed, like when I was running my software house, that so many projects that we built were killed or never went live or made no sense, etc. We also tried to advise the clients sometimes, but we also had no idea because we didn't spoke with the potential end users of them.
And also we focused on the thing that we wanted to do best. So if you say to us that this is the best, the most important functionality and you need to do it like this, you do it because this is your customer. They are saying to you that you need to focus on this. And the problem is that they actually don't know. Before you talk to the actual end user, you don't know. And that's the main problem with building products. It's you need to talk to your users, potential clients, and so on, because they will tell you what they want. And that's it. That's the first, let's say, problem I see. The second problem I see from our perspective, from my perspective, most will not relate, but we invested all of our money and time to build a lot of product solutions and so on. And my idea, let's say, coming back from, let's say, my experience, that I know the value of money and I understand it, how tough it is to earn money and have money and so on. So I didn't want to reach out to any VCs, investors, angel investors, because in my head it was, well, if I don't make it, if I don't do the product that I said I will build the expectations and everybody want to have this unicorn, whatever, and I will fail, then I could not look into my mirror that I spent someone else's money and did not deliver. And so that's why we invested mostly our own money. And what I learned right now with Defguard for the first time is that Yeah, but nobody knows. That's the product business. If someone knew, they would just build the damn thing and go and did not invest. So now the most important thing for me is that I would very early start to talk with angels, whatever VCs and so on, because they not only help you with the money itself that enables you to build, but also they have much more experience that you have, because they went through the journey of building. Most of them, or some of them, went through the journey, especially angel investors, went through the journey of building, grinding, understanding, knowing everything. And that's why we hit it off so really quickly, because I understood the pains that you were going through, and you said you don't need to explain. I understand everything, and I will help you guys. And from now on, I was building for 15 years, we built for 15 years products on our own, talked only to each other, the team, and so on. And I remember those times when I looked at the mirror and I don't understand, I don't know. I will go to this whatever YouTube book and so on and read and so on. Now, you know it best. I just take my call and call.
Yeah,
phone
I mean,
and call.
It's there are two things. One, as an entrepreneur, founder, it's a very lonely journey, and I went quite a long bootstrapping as well. It was super lonely, and it's good to have this call to talk to somebody. But secondly, it also when you rise the first round or then subsequent round, it gives you some validation in the market.
Exactly.
That actually these VCs or angel investors, they either had experience in the area or they asked other industry experts to take a look and gathered positive feedback that it makes sense. It does not mean that it will pan out, and that's why as a VC we want to build a portfolio of 25 companies, because we don't know. Even if we do everything by the book, validate market, founders, traction, everything, it still may fail.
Exactly.
So you need to do it, but you as a validation, I saw some statistics that generally with each subsequent round, the chance of you failing as a startup is actually smaller. And it's not smaller because you raised more money, it's because there is more validation that you got.
That was also another thing that was new to us, because we have not only Hard2beat as an investor, but other VCs and so on, and everybody did their homework. Everybody said to me we even you are the main, let's say not me, but you are one of the main faces of just opening the doors for us. But everybody says, we know Maciej, we value him, we still do need to do our own due diligence, we still do need to do our own homework, and that's it, period. And everybody did. And so
however, it's not like that in whole industry, because there is more and more so-called vibe investors. You have vibe coders in my domain now. You start having vibe investors, and you actually don't know if they will be more successful or not.
I'm stating about the experiences that we had with our investors.
Yeah. I think it's, again, by the book, you should have your own due diligence, and that's very beneficial for the company, because I remember that some of the VCs that maybe didn't invest, but they may be interested later on, they provided very valuable feedback, and each investor have certain network, and if you have more, actually it's better because you get this feedback from many more places.
We do take advantage of that.
Good, very good. So maybe just a couple short questions at the end. I think we need to slowly finish. So can you talk about the most interesting technical challenge that you had in building Defguard so far?
So the architecture itself, and the fact that we chose Rust as the main language, which is very hard, but has a lot of benefits for security. But the architecture is the main reason, because proper network security solution needs to have a proper networking stack, meaning that you need to have always in a network, especially a network that is open to the internet, you need to have segmentation, like a public segment, the military unauthorized zone segment, internal network segment, and so on. So having that, let's say, as a base and the most important requirement that you need to segment, and then you need to figure out what functionalities of your security solution should be in which segment. And then those segments need to communicate in a completely different way that most VPN solutions and most security solutions say, we have this and that, and they do the easiest way how they can do it, like one binary, one application, and they give you just the functionality. And that's also one of the main differences of Defguard. Like we said, yeah, we need this functionality, but the question is how you do this functionality from security point of view. And that is to fit the functionality in the architecture of the whole stack itself. And that is really difficult.
Mm-hmm. And why Rust is the language that is better to build a security solution than others?
Every Rust developer will tell you that it's really, really tough for you to have a code that actually compiles. So the effort is put on the developer itself to properly write the code, think about memory, not memory allocation, because you don't do that, but memory management generally. And so exactly the same. How you approach to the architecture of your program before, and not the logic itself. So this is, I think that, this is a great example of the Rust does exactly the same as our security solution. You need to think about constantly how to approach the architecture of your program. You need to be aware of everything, and then it helps you and tells you, but you have problems here, 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 here. But when it compiles, then it mostly works and is mostly secure by the design of Rust, and not giving you full access to the memory and so on and so on. So I don't want to go into the details because, to be honest, I do not code that much in Rust, but our team genuinely loves it. And
so it's also very hard to find the right developers, because probably for solutions like Defguard, it's like top 1%,
yes,
or even 0.1% that can actually build solutions like that with that architecture with Rust.
Yeah, exactly. So with Rust and with Defguard, I think the similarity is that you need to do your pain up front. You need to figure out, you need to put a lot of effort and work for that solution to be exactly how you figured it out. And a lot of solutions and a lot of other languages give you the advantage of quickly delivering something, quickly giving you the results and so on. But quickly may be good for
business logic.
Yeah, there are, let's say, there are great languages that fit to that category, but not security.
Cool. So your favorite project from the past? It could be something for fun.
Yes, so my favorite project is that this is a precursor to Defguard. Is that when I was in college and I worked for ESPs, various ESPs, and I worked for several of them, I looked at network magazines and I saw those network appliances and network systems that did a lot of networking stuff. And I did not have the money to access them. We built everything around open source Linux and so on. So I did a project which was called NetAdmin, when I actually did like a proper UI and then had a lot of, let's say, gateways, agents, and so on a lot of servers. And you had a central place when you can manage the whole network. And that was for ISPs, so you can connect devices. It was 20 something years ago. And when you plugged the device to the network, then you got an SMS that, okay, there's a new device, not authorized, and so on. And you get in a web panel. I wrote most of this stuff in Perl because there was not even Python back then.
That's a very interesting programming language.
Yes. But it did automate a lot and gave you the central point of seeing what's going on in your network, configuring the users, devices, services, and so on and so on.
So it's like what today vendors do. Like they came to that 20 years later with like cloud management of devices. So it was a precursor to that.
Yes, exactly. It was, and I thought it was actually working. It served like thousands of users and so on. And when I didn't not connect also that, but when you connect it in a way, this is exactly what the Defguard is supposed to be in the future, to like securely and easily give you access to manage all the network.
So maybe at the end, like where people can find Defguard and how do they reach out to you?
So devguard.net, that's the main website, the domain. GitHub.com/devguard is the main repository of all our, let's say, components and projects. And then from there, you can find all the other channels like Mastodon and YouTube and other stuff that we have. I hope that people will join our Matrix channel, Matrix Chat. So we host our own chat solution, secure one. So you can also find on our website and in the documentation of Defguard how to chat with us. There are a lot of, I think like last week we have had like 200 or 300 active users on that. So
that's amazing community to get feedback, and that you actually can speak with the companies. Like if I buy a product from one of these companies that we mentioned, like you will
talk to sales. And
I will talk to sales, and then maybe I can open a ticket that somebody will answer sooner or later, probably later.
Yeah. But hopefully we will have that much success that we will come to this problem, that we will have less and less time or possibility to talk to that much people that we want to, but I will take hopefully that challenge on my shoulders. Like I want to figure out how to build this company that will stay open and active, talking to the users, the customers and so on. And when we grow, hopefully we can also take the challenge of how to do it on a larger scale.
I think that a lot of companies and people underappreciate like how this direct relation with users, clients of the product can benefit the development in the company. So thank you very much for the time. Good luck with further development of Defguard.
See you all guys in the internet.
Yeah.